Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Temi and I'm your HR ally and I help candidates prepare for their NHS interviews with clear and practical tips to help you ace that interview in the NHS. In this video, I will break down the NHS official scoring metrics that would help you understand how the NHS scoring works and how best to answer the questions to ensure that you get the job that you've applied for. I'll be explaining what each of the score means from 0 to 5. I would also explain how best to structure your answers when answering the questions during the interview. This is to ensure that you are consistently hitting those 5s and 4s when answering your questions. So please do not click off and watch till the end because I'm going to be dropping valuable tips to ensure that you ace those interviews. The scoring breakdown for the NHS is from 0 to 5. Let's go through the scoring breakdown step by step. Did you know that in every NHS interview, you are judged on a very strict scoring system, which is from 0 to 5? I bet you didn't know this. Here's the scary part. Even if you feel that you've given a very good answer, you might just end up scoring a 2, which is less than acceptable, and that does not get you anywhere. And that's because you haven't given the right amount of evidence in your example when you were giving your answers. But if you understand how the panel scores interviews, you'll be able to turn your answers from a 0 to a 5. Scoring a 5 means that your answer has met the criteria above and beyond. It also shows the panel that you are not just ready for this job, but ready to excel significantly in the role that you've actually applied for. Let's go through the scoring breakdown step by step. The first score is 0. That means no relevant evidence has been provided by you when you gave that answer. You'll be surprised how many people do get 0s when they answer their questions. I've been in an interview where we've given a candidate 0s and only actually gave the candidate 1 mark. That's just for attending. So what does the score 0 mean? 0 means no relevant evidence has been provided by you when you answer that question. What this essentially means is that you haven't even answered the question at all. We've asked you A and you've given us the answer for Z. That's what 0 means. The score 1 means that it is much less than acceptable answer has been given when you are given a score of 1 during an interview scoring. This means very sparse evidence has been given during that interview answer. You make claims like, I'm a very clear communicator, but you haven't actually given us examples of how you're a very clear communicator. Just giving us the answer of you being a clear communicator. It's like as if you're still writing your supporting statement. Even if you write, I'm a clear communicator in your supporting statement, that's not very strong evidence to back up the claim of you being a strong communicator. You need to give more example and explain to the panel how you are a strong communicator. So not giving the right example gives you a 1. To get a score of 2, you're giving less than acceptable evidence in your answer for that interview. You've given some evidence, but that evidence that you've given is very weak. It is not a very strong evidence that is convincing enough that you've actually done what you actually said you've done. This kind of example is always weak, is always hypothetical, and very unconvincing. So for example, if they asked you how you've dealt with conflict, to get a 2, you would have said, if I had to deal with conflict, I would have, instead of actually sharing what you've actually done when you've been faced with this kind of situation. So we want to hear what you've actually done in that scenario when you were faced with a conflict, not an hypothetical answer to you facing conflict. You might feel as if you've not actually experienced conflict in a work situation, but I believe you would have experienced conflict in your personal life. So you can always give those kind of examples. It doesn't necessarily mean for you to always give work examples. You can always draw on from personal life and personal things that have happened to you to be able to buttress your points when giving examples during an interview. That kind of answer shows potential, but it is not competence. So it doesn't necessarily tell us how you'll be able to deal with that situation if you were faced in that scenario. To get a score of 3, that means your example or your answer to that question is just acceptable. That would make you get by during an interview. This kind of answer meets the criteria. So we've looked at it and said, okay, this actually meets the criteria of the job description and the person specification for you to be able to score a 3 in your interview. This shows that you've actually had the experience to do the job that you've actually applied for. And we can develop you on that. It is a basic answer, so you've just given us the bare minimum of showing that you can actually do the job. You've actually been faced with that scenario and you've actually dealt with it, but you're not giving us in-depth answers, just an acceptable answer. To score a 4, that means that answer you've given is more than acceptable. In this answer, you're providing us with compelling detail, compelling evidence to show that you've actually dealt with that kind of scenario. Your answer in this kind of scenario is strong, is structured. Your answer would have demonstrated your ability at that level or even beyond. So for example, if you're applying for a band 5 role, your example that you would have given in this answer would have demonstrated your ability as a band 5 and even shows that you can actually become a band 6 in the next couple of months. That's the kind of answer you've given to show us to be able to get a score of a 4 in this kind of answer. So to now get that 5, this is a top score. This is the creme de la creme of answers. You have provided us with very high quality evidence, showing us the example that goes above and beyond of the person specification and the job description. You are reflective, you are detailed, and you clearly demonstrate that you can exceed the expectation of the role that you actually applied for. And this answer would show that you are adding value to the patient, the care that you give the patient, your colleagues, and actually even the organization. So it's a very reflective piece. So when you're giving your answer, your star answer is standing out. So you're ensuring that the situation that you've used, the tasks that you've performed, the actions that you've taken, and the results that you've actually achieved during that answer is top notch. And you're also reflective in that answer. So this kind of answer shows the NHS values shining throughout the answer that you're given. Here, you will score a 5. How do you actually score a 5? That is the main question. How do you score a 5? You need to ensure that you're using star answers to answer that question in that interview. If you've watched my previous videos, you will see all the answers that I'm giving for questions and answers to real life interviews that I've attended are always star answers. So when you're giving that answer, we need to hear that situation, the task, the actions, and the results, and the added benefit of the reflection. The reflective piece is always very, very important as well when giving your answer using that star method. Another way for you to get that 5 is you need to be specific in your answer that you're giving. You need to ensure that you're giving detailed examples and not hypothetical examples. You're not giving just general statements, but you're very specific and you're very direct in terms of the answers you're giving. You need to also ensure you're going beyond the basic. So you're going above and beyond of what has been written in the job description and the person specification. So it's always aiming higher, always aiming for the top, always ensuring that the answer you're giving is going above and beyond of what has been requested in the job description and the person specification. Like I said, you need to always reflect as well. Reflection is the best way for you to be able to show that you're actually learning. You're always open to learning, you're open to changes, you're open to corrections as well. Reflection is the key to ensuring that you get that 5. When you put reflection at the back of your answer, you will see that you are scoring high during those interviews. You need to explain what you've learned and how you're going to apply it furthermore in the future. This is what elevates your answer from a 4 to a 5. Although the 5 score might seem like it's unattainable, believe me, I've been in interviews where I've scored people 5 because the answer they've given are just above and beyond. It is very attainable when you structure your answers properly. What are the common mistakes you need to avoid to ensure that your scores are not in 2s and 3s? Here are some of the common mistakes that you need to avoid. You need to avoid hypothetical answers instead of giving real life examples. Don't talk in the hypothetical, talk about a real scenario of how you dealt with that situation. Avoid giving one-liners and very short answers. Most NHS interviews have been booked for at least 30 minutes. So you need to ensure that you are using up all that time to be able to explain yourself properly. You need to avoid waffling. You need to have a structure in place. That is why when you put the STAR acronym at the back of your mind when you are answering your question, it helps you structure your answers properly. So you know the first thing you need to say is the situation. The next thing you need to say is the task. The next thing you need to say after that is the action. And the final thing you need to say is the result of what happened. You need to ensure that you put the result of the action that you've taken. You need to ensure that you reflect on the situation that has happened and how better you can improve it, or what changes would you make if that situation occurred again. So you need to ensure that you're reflecting as well as giving us your results. If you avoid all these mistakes, you'll be above a lot of candidates in that interview to ensure that you are sitting pretty at the top of the scoring metrics. So just to recap, the score between 0 to 2 is insufficient evidence. So we need to avoid giving insufficient evidence. A score of 3 means that your answers are acceptable, just base minimum for you to be acceptable to be able to do that role. That means that answer is okay, that you can do the role. A score of 4 is very strong. That means you actually meet the criteria to do the job and you have gone a bit above what is actually expected in that role. And the big one is a 5, which is an excellent score. This answer is much more acceptable, going above and beyond of what is expected of you to be able to do that role perfectly. This means that you've significantly exceeded the expectation to do that job. If you want to land that NHS role, you need to ensure that the answers you're giving during your interview are structured, they're detailed, and they're very reflective of your practice. And the most important thing is that you need to ensure that whatever answer you are given aligns with the NHS values. The NHS value is the core of everything that you do. So you need to ensure that whatever answer you're given always aligns with the 6 NHS values in all situations. So there you have it, the NHS scoring metrics, the insider tips that no one else is telling you on YouTube. How best to understand what each of the scoring means when sitting in front of that interview panel. If this video has helped you in any way, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for insider tips on NHS interview questions and answers. Let me know in the comment section what NHS roles you're applying for, and if this video has actually helped you align your thinking when preparing for your interview. If you still need one-to-one help, I offer a one-to-one coaching on interviewing, so you can always drop your comments in the comment section or send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as possible if you do need that extra help in your interview preparation. Until next time, where I'll be bringing you more videos on NHS interview questions, answers, and tips and tricks of how best to ace your interview in the NHS. Until next time, take care. Thank you. Bye.